What's up, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Variant the Podcast. I'm Arris Quinones with Tim Conley.
Greetings, Variant Nation. How is everybody doing on this fine afternoon? Arris, how are you, my friend?
You know, I'm doing good. Like I just told you before we started recording, I just scarfed some blueberry muffins.
So you should be plenty refreshed right now because a blueberry muffin does the trick.
Yeah, I'm gonna be on a high, and then it's gonna bring me crashing down by the end of this podcast. I'm gonna be like, yeah, and yeah, superheroes and stuff.
What was in that muffin?
You know, this was no Entenmann's muffin, okay?
This was not your everyday run-of-the-mill Kroger muffin. No, sir.
No, this wasn't your Little Bites, okay? This was a serious muffin.
We got this from what we'll call a specialty shop.
The tax is a lot more than 8%. And now people are like, wait, did he really?
Now that nobody knows whether that's serious or not. Yeah.
And I feel like we have to keep it ambiguous just because that's funny.
We'll just leave that open. That's for you to decide.
But we're living in a post finale world of WandaVision now, Tim.
That's
How crazy
right.
is that?
This is the first week actually where we do not have a show to look forward to on Disney Plus for a while.
Right, but thankfully only.
I should say in a while because next week,
I was going to say
Winter Soldier starts.
Thankfully, this is the only Friday.
Yeah, that's true. 1 week break. That's it.
It's a lot better than The Mandalorian because when The Mandalorian finished, I felt like empty because I'm like, wait, what do you mean? Like, because at least when, WandaVision finished, we wait 1 week, one Friday without any, MCU goodness. And then the following Friday, we got, Winter Soldier, Falcon Winter Soldier.
Right.
So I'm very excited for that. We don't have to wait like 2 months to get some more Disney Plus film quality goodness.
Yeah, it's pretty consistent now. Now, for the rest of the year, it's going to be just one thing after the other, after the other, after the other, as we've said 1,000 times already. So the content is on full tilt, man. And next week, of course, we have the infamous, Snyder Cut finally landing.
Not
I don't want to talk
Tim,
about
the
it.
famous.
I don't want to talk about it.
Well, we'll leave that for the end, right?
Sure, great.
But anyway, WandaVision. So obviously spoilers for the entirety of the series now because it's over.
Oh yeah.
But what did you think? I want to know your thoughts. Diving into this, what are your thoughts? Because coming out of episode 8, that's it. Not only did it like throw out a lot of our theories per se.
Oh yeah.
It also set up a lot of new things, and we had a lot more questions like, oh, what's gonna happen for this, this finale. What did you think of it overall?
Yeah, at the end of the last or episode 8, we were left talking about like a lot of seeminglys, right? Like it seemingly blew up a lot of our theories, and it seemingly changed a lot of possibilities or added some new ones. And just like everybody else who's a big fan of the show and the Marvel Universe, the MCU, etc. We were theorizing and pontificating about what could be. For literally in the last episode for over 2 hours. So there was a lot to think about and a lot of possibilities to explore. But in the end, I wound up and I kind of tweeted it out. I even did a poll, because I was left feeling, I don't want to say empty inside, but I was underwhelmed. I think I was underwhelmed, and I do think it is completely fair to suggest that a part of the reason I felt underwhelmed is because we were doing so much theorizing. In the end, it was what we came to realize very quickly as the episode got going, episode 9, that is you started to really quickly realize, like very early in the episode, oh, this is going to be much, much simpler than anything that we theorized. This is going to be a lot of this stuff was either misdirection or
heavy misdirection.
They're leaving it purely to set up, right? They're just setting up for future events or possibility of future events. One of the big shocks for me is that we did not get any more cameos. for the remainder of this series. By the end, we never saw Doctor Strange. We did not get introduced to anyone from the Fantastic Four. We did not get introduced or reintroduced to any other characters. The whole Ultron theory and possibility, that was out the window. No, that never came into play. The situation with White Vision, right? That ended up being a much more directly tied to what we've seen in comics than some of the possibilities or theories of what this could be or what we might even see by the end of the episode.
I wasn't mad about that, though. I kind of liked how that played out.
Yeah, I can't say that I did. I did not dislike that at all. Basically, it kind of in a roundabout way, it told us without it actually happening in the episode that we are getting Vision back. It's just going to be spread out over time, you know, whether it happens in the Doctor Strange film or it happens over multiple films on a broader story arc. We don't know yet. But it was just a lot more misdirection than we thought. It was a lot more setup that was not going to get resolved and did not get resolved in the series than we thought. And I think that part of it, because we did so much theorizing and you know, potentializing and all of this kind of a thing, I did feel underwhelmed by the end. And granted, some of that is absolutely our fault, but some of it is not. Some of it, I think, you know, there was a little bit of, you know, and it's well within their right as the creators, the storytellers to do it. But it was, I think some of it was a little bit, you know, unfair to the audience, you know, especially like what they did with, you know, Evan's Quicksilver from the X-Men universe, where that wound up just being just some random dude named, what was it, Ralph Boner?
Was it Ralph or Roger?
I think it was Ralph Boner.
Something Boner. They
literally made a joke where his last name was Boner.
Well, but that's because that's the lady that Agnes was that's the dude Agnes was constantly talking about. I believe her husband. She would always refer to him throughout the series. So that it ended up being that's who it was.
Yeah. And he just winds up being some like model or actor or something. And it was a total misdirection.
That was one of my theories, though. Remember, I said this is probably just.
It was one of the things that you said. And I was like, if they do that, it's dumb. Mm-hmm. And for me, like, and people can say whatever they want. And again, it was totally within the right. They were toying with the audience. It was a misdirection. Yes. But for me, that one fell flat. That just is my opinion. That one fell flat. I think that was a weird thing to introduce, to literally do nothing with. You know, it accomplished their purposes for sure.
Right.
It got people talking. It generated a ton of buzz. I mean, we were all over that ourselves, as was everybody else. What does this mean? Are they literally merging the two? And that's kind of one of the things I didn't like about it. It was so deliberate. It was so big, in the end, it wound up, it kind of, this is why I didn't like it. It was clickbait. That's why I didn't like it.
Well, yeah, it was a total look over here, look over here, look over here. And so that way you're not thinking about what they're really going to do. You know what I mean?
Yes, but for me, it was more than that. It was clickbait. It was a television show version of clickbait, where they introduced something that they knew was obviously going to make everyone think that this was something much bigger and had to do with the multiverse that everyone already knew was being introduced. And it kind of directly tied in with what we all knew they were doing, only for that to be totally and utterly meaningless. And for them to take that character and the actor who played that character, that same character in the universe that they now own, and to just go, oh no, that's just a guy named this, and we just use the same actor playing the same exact character as just to tease you and make fun of you, and to really just to get people to pay attention and to click on watch the show. So it's like, I get what they did. It was, there was some tongue-in-cheek playfulness from the creators, and again, it's well within their right to do. But I do think it was a little bit, it was too clickbaity for me so it kind of fell flat. But a lot of the other things that weren't there, it wasn't like nothing. There was nothing in the episode that made me go, wow. You know what I mean? I felt like it just kind of ended. You know what I mean? There were definitely things that happened, especially that post-credit scene, what we saw with White Vision. And the battle between, Agnes or Agatha rather, and Wanda was
the
cool.
freaking spectacle that it was, and how it literally just looked like a movie. Like how
part in the sky, when they were flying in the sky, and Wanda turns the entire, interior of her world into this basically like witch's rune circle.
Right, it was like all red and everything.
That was dope. That was really dope. But some of the fighting and stuff on the ground felt a little bit circus actish. There was a lot, it felt like they were on wires at times, which is unusual for the MCU.
But that's the problem I have with flying characters in general. Like I feel like whenever you do it practical like that, it's hard to make it not look, like they're on wires. You know what I mean? So
yes and no. I mean, there's, as far as the MCU goes, they've done an incredible job of presenting those special effects, with almost seamlessly.
But they're usually like CGI. But I'm saying when you do it practical, right? Like if you see that, like if you see waist up, that doesn't count. I'm talking about like a full body shot of like vision coming from the ground. If it's practical, it always looks a little like, just because it's like it's hard to, it's hard to do to make.
Well, what I'm saying is in the MCU, in the films and everything that we've seen in the MCU up until now.
Yeah.
Other than the ABC television shows and such, I won't say for that. But as far as the movies and what we're used to in the MCU, you don't see that. You can't really tell what's practical, shot practically, and what is shot, in front of green screen and in CGI and all that kind of stuff. It kind of blends together very seamlessly, and it looks great. This had some really wonky moments for me as far as the special effects. That
oh, really? You thought that bad?
Yeah, it was a little bit wonky. I'm hesitant to really say anything negative because it's like more nitpicky. It kind of took me out of it just because I'm looking for that type, or that stuff stands out to me more. But there was a couple of times where it felt a little bit, lower budget. And some people might think that adds to the charm of the show. It was just kind of part of the show because you did see that throughout the series. Like especially when they were indoors and they would both start flying, Wanda and Vision, and they would lift up and they were clearly on wires.
Oh yeah, but that was obviously, like you said, super intentional.
Exactly. So it was like, because they did that, maybe they were just trying to stick with the continuity of keeping that practical element there and keeping them on rigs and so forth. But that kind of stood out to me a little bit more.
See, I didn't notice. I didn't really, pick up on it. I thought everything looked. That was one of the things I was actually going to say when you brought up like the fight and stuff. I thought it looked, just as good as the stuff we see in the MCU, especially with that Vision and White Vision that were flying like in that library or that room. Like that looked freaking great.
Yeah, that all looked great. I'm more referring to the interactions, the battles between Wanda and Agatha and Vision when they were all kind of in that square. And in the neighborhoods and stuff like that. Some of that stuff, it was pretty obvious that they were on rigs and stuff like that. And that stood out to me. And the other aspect, the other thing, and I don't know if you picked up on this, but like at the beginning of the episode, some of the interactions between Agatha and Wanda and Vision and the kids and everything like that, some of the dialogue was a little bit cheesy. Kind of.
Well, it went into like family.
Was a little bit.
It went into
cringy.
Family mode. Like we're a family now. Come on, mom. So it was like it kind of.
Yeah, some of that was a little bit like a little bit cheesy for me. But I mean, overall, the episode was fine. It just kind of, in the end, there was some cool moments, some cool things happened, some cool teases that lead us into where we're headed. But I kind of just in the end, I just felt like a little bit underwhelmed and a little bit like, well, it just kind of ended. I don't know where you, and when I polled the audience, there was about 20% on the poll, loved it. Everyone else either thought it was pretty good or they were disappointed or was flat out like, what the heck was that?
Right.
With the, what the heck was that being on the low end of the totem pole, the vast majority of the people were either felt underwhelmed, or just like, it was pretty good. It was like kind of, okay.
Yeah, I mean, I really enjoyed the series. I think, after hearing your thoughts on it, I definitely liked it more than you. But I will say, I will agree.
Well, are you talking about the series or the individual episode?
Oh, sorry, the episode. Yes, the individual episode. The series as a whole, I freaking love. But
yeah,
I'm talking about the episode. I definitely think from, listening to all your thoughts, I enjoyed the finale more than you did. Although I will strongly agree that I did feel like it was a little underwhelming. But
Right.
like you were saying earlier, I realized that is clearly just because of all the theories and stuff we build up in our head. You know what I mean? We're like,
without a doubt,
we built it like, well, this and this can happen, and that can mean this character, and then Mephisto, and then we're gonna get Doctor Strange, and then that's gonna lead into the multiverse of madness, and we're thinking all this stuff, and none of it happened, right? So it was kind of just like a kind of thing, right? Where The Mandalorian was the opposite, the finale to season 2, where we were theorizing, well, Luke could show up, maybe even Mace Windu could be the guy who saved Grogu, and one of those big things happened. Luke freaking showed up in his X-Wing and wrecked shop. But with this, none of those fan theories, came to pass, which, to be fair, I did see an article the Thursday night before the finale went live, from the director of the series making a statement to the audience that he's like, I want to prepare everyone that a lot of those theories out there are not right. So I don't want people to feel like we robbed them with the finale, or feel, he literally used the word underwhelmed. And
oh, wow.
I see why he did that, because that's exactly.
I mean, it was a little bit late for that.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like he waited until they gotten out of it what they wanted, because a lot of these misdirections and these things that they added were obviously intentionally done to generate buzz and attention and interest. Yeah.
It's a business, after all.
Yeah, I mean, it's smart marketing in terms of like getting the show off the ground, feeding Disney Plus, all that kind of stuff. And some of it I have no problem with it. Some of it is just like, okay, you got us, that sort of a thing. It was fun. It was a great ride, gave us lots to talk about. And there was a cut, but some of it I'm just like, I do think it was a little bit heavy-handed on the teases and the misdirections. That made it a little bit clickbaity for me. Yeah. By the end, but not significant enough to where I'm just like, oh, that was correct. That was terrible.
It's kind of cool now, though, going forward. So because of this, as far as like future stuff, now you really have to know, just because this or that happened or they introduced character definitely does not mean this. You know what I mean? Right. And I think it worked. I think it also, while it could be like a letdown now, for future, it sets it up for, we as an audience definitely cannot predict what's going to happen, because that was that was so like, easy, heavy right there to the audience. Like, look, it's another Quicksilver. That, what that means? We got the Spider-Verse coming. We also have a movie called Multiverse of Madness. And no. So that I kind of like, just because I'm the guy who I don't want to know what's happening. I purposely try not to figure out stuff sometimes, because I just want to be surprised. I don't, it's no fun.
Experience it.
Yeah, it's no fun if you're like, oh yeah, that means, obviously we do that on the show, but there's certain things that I'm like, no, I don't want to dive into it. I just want to know. You know what I mean? So, I don't know. It was weird though to like, because going back to the Jonah Jameson thing with Far From Home, where we were saying, well, maybe that's like, they did that. Now that just definitely confirms that they did that just as like a little tip of the hat for people who like, no, we as Marvel Studios realize that J.K. Simmons is like the best Jonah Jameson. It's not going to get any better. So we're just going to hire him again for our universe. You know what I mean? So that doesn't mean that has any connections.
Not necessarily
to the Spider-Verse. Although, with the rumors going around, maybe it does. Who knows? But,
I mean, that's really the bottom line, right? Is we don't know.
Yeah.
They're throwing out, and I think, again, I go back to some of this is smart. It's just smart storytelling misdirection that's meant intentionally to keep the audience guessing and on their toes. And which I'm more than okay with. It's one of the things that makes these type of broad storytelling and world building fun. Just as long as they avoid the clickbaity stuff, I'll be solid.
So the other thing with the episode, besides obviously the Quicksilver thing, love it or hate it, which I'm just kind of that's what I want to elaborate on actually a little bit, because I'm happy. I had mixed feelings when they did this, right? Because we talked about it on Pause Podcast.
And we would agree on it. We agree on the sentiment.
Yeah, I had mixed feelings on this when we talked about it a few podcasts ago when they first introduced him. I'm like, okay, that means, obviously at that time we're like, full on, that means they're introducing the multiverse. Why? That's really weird if not. Then on the podcast after that, the more I thought about it, I'm like, well, maybe, and that's when I came out there. I'm like, actually, this could be just like, a big, hey, look over here. This is not real. And that's what it ended up being. But initially, when us and the rest of the world were like, oh, no, that's got to mean multiverse here because they own Fox, like we all know, and he was Quicksilver. I didn't know how I felt that's the way they're going, because I'm like, that's cool. It's genius to introduce the multiverse. But like I said, my only thing was I'm fine with that if they would have gone that route and give us like Michael Fassbender, Magneto, and all that stuff. But I didn't want it to be the main X-Men for the MCU, right? So that was my concern, where it's like, awesome multiverse alternate versions, but I still wanted the Aaron Tyler freaking Quicksilver for this universe. I want them to cast their own Wolverine, their own Charles Xavier, and stuff like that. So that's the one relief I got out of this, where I don't have to worry about that anymore. In the hope that's like, oh, it is Quicksilver, and he's not replacing the Age of Ultron Quicksilver. He's just an alternate version. But now we know he's not a Quicksilver at all. So I don't know if you saw this bit of news that literally came out the day, which is another weird thing. I mean, it's a rumor, it's not official, but it's funny how this stuff leaks like so close to each other. So that night that the director of the WandaVision series basically warned the fans, hey, don't get your hopes too high. A lot of theories out there are wrong. News, or rumor rather, from a trusted source broke out that Kevin Feige and Marvel Studios are developing a X-Men movie titled Mutants. So that I don't know if you heard about that. So
I did not know.
That's leaking right now, that in development behind the scenes, Kevin Feige and Marvel Studios are developing their own X-Men movie and franchise, which obviously we knew was coming. We got Fantastic Four.
Sure,
X-Men was the next one coming. So, but that came out the night before, which is like, oh, so they were obviously when we watched the finale, we got an answer, but obviously again, they had no intention of like, bringing these characters and making them the main X-Men characters in the MCU, which for me, again, I just want to, because there's so many issues with the X-Men, the Fox X-Men franchise. There's a lot of good ones. I say a lot. I use that very loosely. There's a few good ones. We got X2. I still like the first one. First Class I enjoyed, obviously Logan. There's some good X-Men movies from the Fox universe. But there was also a lot of not so great ones, and there was a lot of continuity issues within those movies and other like spin-off and solo Wolverine movies they did as well. So I didn't want bringing, all that into the MCU and them have to fix it. I just rather a reset, reboot, give me a new Wolverine, a new Jean Grey, new Cyclops, start afresh. You know what I mean? So I'm very happy about that. That's the one thing I'll say. Whether, it would have been cool or not for Evan Peters to be introducing the multiverse, the good thing to come out of it is we're getting a fresh reboot for the X-Men definitively. And I'm happy with that,
Yes. Yeah, that's what I always wanted as well. The saving grace for me, and the only thing that made me excited about the possibility of them integrating the 20th Century Fox X-Men into the MCU was Michael Fassbender and James McAvoy. And getting to keep them in those two roles. That was really the only thing that I was like, that will be great. Everything else, I've said numerous times on the show here, I wanted that to be completely redone, and I just anticipated that that's what they were going to do, that Kevin Feige was going to want to reset that, not have to deal with, carrying over everything that was done by Fox.
Yeah.
So, in the end, it's not surprising at all that that's actually what they're doing. It's what was anticipated. It's just they threw that whole monkey wrench in there with the
Evan
Quicksilver
Peters
deal in WandaVision. Evan Peters, Quicksilver, and it threw open this whole like, whoa, this is like, why would you do that unless because we all know that they're doing the multiverse. So why would you bring in Quicksilver using the exact same actor?
Or are they? Is the title and all the rumors just a misdirect?
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to guess not.
Could you imagine?
Yeah.
Then you'd really be...
Could you freaking imagine? I'd be like, come on, people.
Then you'd really be mad about the clickbait, because you literally have multiverse in the title.
Right, exactly. In addition to that, they have already, with this show, they've established that Wanda is not a mutant. She's more like a, again, I said it in the last episode, she's more like the MCU's version of the Dark Phoenix. She's this very powerful, almost...
She's the embodiment of the Mind Stone.
Yeah, almost a divine entity due to her being imbued with the power of the Mind Stone that allows her to create life and manipulate reality and... all kinds of different fun things that we don't even know fully yet.
You know what she is, Tim? She's the Scarlet Witch. Chaos
She's the
magic.
Scarlet Witch. That was one of the coolest parts of the tail end of episode 8, where she finally got the name Scarlet Witch, and then throughout episode 9, not just seeing her become the Scarlet Witch, but seeing her get her real Scarlet Witch, suit.
I was about to bring that up. I was going to be like, how about that freaking
cool
costume?
And that scene where they did that, where they showed the vision that she saw in the Mind Stone, that they gave us a flashback of seeing that come into reality. That was a really cool moment in the episode.
What, you mean that vision of her seeing that come into reality?
Did the vision have a vision?
No, I 100% agree with you. And even going off what you said earlier, that vision she had in episode 8 was very reminiscent of the Dark Phoenix, what we've seen in, the X-Men 90s animated series, the comic books, obviously, where you basically have yellow light and fire behind her with the silhouette coming, being like, I choose you as my host. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So, but yeah, it is really curious to see when they do introduce the X-Men, which again is coming. It's just a matter of time, especially with rumors that they already are currently working on one. What they're going to do with her. You know what I mean? Because she's literally the one in the comic books who got rid of 90% of all mutants. Like, so that's a big one to not be a mutant. You know what I mean? I guess it's the MCU. It's been different from the comics in a lot of ways. So you could just work with it. But but as a purist, and I know this is not going to be for everyone, and definitely not the general population, but for us comic book fans who've watched these animated series, who've read all the comic books growing up and stuff, it's like, but that's such a missed opportunity because it could be so cool, And then does that mean it's like, how would you tie her to Magneto at that point? I'm sure you could work around it, but it's like, it would just work.
I don't know that they're going to, honestly.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. It's like, that's kind of like, missed opportunities. But, I trust the storytelling of the MCU and stuff like that, because just because something isn't like the books doesn't mean you can't make something amazing. A lot of times, 100% of comic book characters and just fiction characters get created in shows and movies, and then because they're so awesome, they get adapted into the books, and then the DC universe and the Marvel universe. So it works both ways. But it's Wanda, man. she's literally the one who's like, bye mutants. She's so closely tied to them and is one that it's like, that's kind of weird. But that's not to keep reiterating myself, but that's just my purest heart, I suppose.
Yeah, and that's totally fair, because it is such a big part of the character. And it is, in the end, it's a pretty significant change to the character. I don't think it's one that we should be surprised at this point, because again, they were forced to build the entire MCU mutantless because of the fact that they did not have the rights to those characters. So they had to, they built this whole entire story arc as if they didn't exist, and now they've got to work their way. They have to kind of reverse engineer the Marvel universe. I mean,
I guess technically
within the MCU.
I guess technically too, right? With all these writers and like the creative rooms they have, if they wanted to, they probably could finagle some way to explain that, no, she is a mutant because this and this power led to this and created that. You know what I mean? Like, it's fiction. You could do anything you want. You could,
right? Yeah.
I mean, sometimes if not done well, it could give us an eye roll. Be like, oh, okay, but it's still like, it's fake. You could really do whatever you want and give this explanation and be like, oh, okay, all right, I guess. You know what I mean?
I just don't know why at this point you would jump through all those hoops. I just don't think, based on the way they've framed everything, I just don't think it's necessary. I think they can. They've kind of, it seems to me that they've chosen this route pretty clearly, that they, of this kind of, MCU's version of the Dark Phoenix, where she was born with magical powers of some kind. And then she was imbued with even greater power by the Mind Stone. And now she's tapping in, as we saw at the end of the episode, she's tapping into this darker element. Because she absorbed the power from Agatha, and on top of that, she now has the Darkhold. So and at the end of the episode, in the post-credit scene, we see her, astral projecting and, kind of like Doctor Strange, and she's literally studying the Darkhold, and that she's playing with fire, right? Even Agatha told her when she became the Scarlet Witch and took all the powers and did what she did, and Agatha says to her, you don't know what you've just done. Like, you don't know what you've unleashed, right? She just keeps saying that to her.
And you heard what she said in that end credit scene, right?
What
Wanda said.
Wanda said?
Yeah, Scarlet Witch, when she was with the Darkhold book floating there. You heard what she was saying, right?
I didn't hear what she was saying. I did, but it was like Latin or something, right?
No, she was saying Tommy.
Because I heard the kids talking.
No, she was saying their names. That's what she was saying. She was saying Tommy, Billy. So alluding to the fact that she's using the Darkhold and her chaos magic to get her kids back. Because she was going to be like, bye-bye, kids. No.
Yeah, I didn't hear that, but that's what I assumed she was doing because that's what it seemed like.
Yeah, that's what she's doing, which, goes back to another theory that I believe I brought up in one of the podcasts. It's not, I don't think it wasn't my theory, but it's one of the ones I heard where she can be a villain now. Maybe she's going to be one of the big villains going forward in the MCU.
Right.
And that's the whole thing. Like, they have to kind of bring her back, which is kind of cool because they haven't really done that, at least not to this extent in the MCU, where they full on made, this character a hero, and then literally turn them and make them a villain. You know what I mean? So that would be something new and interesting to do.
That would be very new, yeah.
With the MCU.
Yeah, and that's a theory that a lot of people held over the last, as we were getting tighter and closer to the end of the series. A lot of people were speculating that are they setting her up to be the villain in Phase 4, or one of the big dangers of Phase 4? And now that we've wrapped up the series, it seems pretty clear that she is either going to be again, like the Dark Phoenix, an inadvertent villain, where she doesn't realize what she's doing. She doesn't realize the danger that she's posing. I mean, even throughout episode 9, where, the people were snapping out of the trance that she had them in, and they were saying, like, you're basically torturing us, please set us free. And she was like, no, I was, keeping you guys were good. And I was keeping you happy and all this kind of a thing. And they were just like, no, it's painful. And you're torturing us. Basically, you're keeping us basically in bondage. It hurts. And, she was so confused, and she finally let them go, realizing like she didn't realize how badly she was making people suffer. And it's just and all of it was driven by her grief. And clearly, as we saw at the end of this episode, that hasn't gone away. That's still driving her, and she's still looking for a way. But now she's got all this new power that she realizes she has all this new power that she didn't know she had before. And it's kind of like this whole thing where she's still got that, that grief, that internal struggle that's, she's like, well, I've got all this power. What good is having it if I can't use it? And then on top of that, clearly we're looking at a situation where she's going to be manipulated. She's got the Darkhold. She's going to be manipulated. Probably, it doesn't seem like it's going to be Mephisto. It looks like there's a good chance it's going to be. I still think
Mephisto is getting introduced in the Doctor Strange movie.
It's possible, but with the Darkhold and what they're doing, it seems more likely to me that it's going to be Chthon.
Yeah, but again, with her kid, I mean, again, they don't have to do the comics, right? But in the comics, her kids are remnants of Mephisto's soul or essence, right?
Yes,
and
that's
we
true.
know she's going after them again. So I feel like you can't introduce those two characters without getting him eventually, unless they are like, no, we just don't want to introduce him. We're going to make completely different. But again, why would you not want to introduce the devil, especially since we know Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness is said to be a horror movie, the first MCU horror movie. So where else would you want to introduce the freaking devil, essentially, than the MCU horror movie?
I mean, that's absolutely true. I agree with you on that point. Chthon would be, it's kind of right in line with there.
Yeah,
and he's even more powerful than Mephisto. He's like a literal universal threat.
Yeah, it would work too. But see, I'm kind of over like those like cosmic, you know what I mean? Threats like, oh, he's going to destroy the universe kind of thing. Like, I feel like it would be so much more compelling to be like, no, this is our version of the devil, and just introducing the devil. Mephisto, that's basically all it is. Super powerful demon, he's the devil. I feel like that.
And again, it could be just like, everything else that we've seen thus far. Like, we could be saying Chthon because in comics, Chthon is directly tied to the Darkhold. Mm-hmm. And in the MCU, because they just want to keep us on our toes, they make it Mephisto.
Right.
You know what I mean? And they do their own thing. But with it being the Darkhold, I mean, unless they really mix it up on that front, the Darkhold in comics is directly tied to Chthon. So it's like, are they going to stick, at least in terms of the character that's associated with the book, and where that power comes from and all that kind of thing? Are they going to stick to the comics on that front? Are they gonna really mix it up and they're gonna give us Mephisto? I don't know
because because in the first Doctor Strange movie, obviously Dormammu, right? That was like the big threat in the end, but that's like another cosmic level threat. That's kind of what I'm talking about. It's just like
right
awesome, and like don't get me wrong, I would freaking be ecstatic to see people like Galactus and ultimately Null, which I've been preaching on the show and stuff for a while. I want to see those big cosmic threats and stuff like that, but I feel with Wanda, with her kids, there's a real opportunity, especially the fans have all been clamoring for it. As we know, this show easily could have introduced him with the introduction of Harkness and Wanda's children and all that stuff.
Without a doubt, yeah.
It just makes all the sense. I don't know.
It does.
That's like what you were saying too. Obviously, completely would fit as well. But it's like I'm just kind of saying, I hope they go this way instead of that way. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I honestly, at this point, I'm so after WandaVision, I'm so like, I don't know, man. I don't know what they're gonna do now. I'm so like, because there's so many possibilities, and in the sense that we know what they do in comics. We know what they've done in comics. We know how these characters are associated with each other in the different events in comics, but they're clearly they're not just going to stick to the comics. They got to mix it up. Otherwise, we're going to know exactly what's going to happen all the time. So they're going to be mixing it up quite a bit. So it could literally be they stick with Chthon and they kind of do this hybrid where Wanda becomes almost like the Dark Phoenix of the MCU, and she's acting as almost an avatar, kind of like the Juggernaut with the with Sidorak, where she's like the avatar of Chthon, and she becomes this massive threat to the universe that it takes the entire Avengers to come together to defeat. Or they could go a more simplistic route like what you're suggesting and do Mephisto. I kind of am leaning towards the fact, because they are going to be introducing the Fantastic Four, because they're going to eventually be setting up to introduce the X-Men, because they're introducing other characters of such large, powerful magnitude as the Eternals, right? We know we're getting Jane Foster Thor, so we're going to have multiple Thors running around. My assumption is we're going to be getting Beta Ray Bill at some point, and we know that Christian Bale is going to be Gore the God Butcher. So it's like, if you're introducing Gore the God Butcher, right, and he's not the main villain of Phase 4, then you've got to introduce somebody that's really freaking powerful.
So are you saying you think the main so you think Doctor Strange 2, Multiverse of Madness, is probably going to introduce the next main big bad? Is that what you're saying?
I think well, again, this is take it all with a grain of salt, because who freaking knows? But it seems to me that based on what they did with WandaVision, I think there's a really good chance that in Doctor Strange, we are seeing Doctor Strange finally come to grips with what's happening with Wanda. And we see the progression of Wanda slowly becoming a danger to everyone, and Doctor Strange trying to figure out how to deal with that, introducing, and we get introduced to the existence or the reality of the big bad, similar to what they did with Thanos. I mean, think about how long Thanos was teased.
Very long time, but I'm hoping, like most people, because in Phase 1, obviously Thanos, a character that even before the MCU, at least comic book fans, were well aware of. You know what I mean? He was not like D-list freaking villain even before the MCU. He was a relatively known character, especially in the comic book community. So I feel like introducing someone like Chthon or something is like going out of nowhere, in the sense where it's like no one knows of this character in the main, world and audience. Sure, that was the case. You could say that for several Marvel franchises now, like Guardians of the Galaxy, I think is the greatest example. That team was not remote, even in the comic book community. That was like a D-list team. You know what I mean? And now they've been like launched to freaking stardom. Everyone, they got their own freaking ride at Disney World and stuff like that. So everyone knows who they are. So yes, certainly. But with the Fantastic Four, if Galactus isn't your next big bad in this phase, I'm sorry, man. I'm going to be so mad. Because you're talking about this Thanos was over 10 years. So it's not like they have to set Galactus up this year, next year, or even the next. Because this is like the first year of this new phase. We got like 9 to 8 years left to freaking set up Galactus. So if you don't give us Galactus as like the end of this epic era, I'm going to be so mad. You know what I mean? Because who better?
I don't disagree with you.
Who better to freaking face off the X-Men, Fantastic Four, the Avengers, any future team, you know, they bring in like the Young Avengers or, you know, the Eternals, Inhumans, all that stuff, than the Conqueror or Devourer of Worlds. Galactus. You know what I'm saying? Silver Surfer, anyone? We want Silver Surfer as well. That would also give us his Herald. And then from there, if you really wanted to get crazy, you know, freaking, you know, hopes in the sky, you could bring in Null in the Black Winter, because that would be great.
Okay, now we're getting wishful here. This is getting real wishful thinking.
I'm sure Donny Cates wants that paycheck. Come on.
Yeah, no doubt, right? Well, you know, here's my thinking on it. Kind of the reason that I'm thinking this is kind of, again, big picture, why I'm thinking they're going to do with Chthon something very similar to what they did with Thanos, and why I say I don't even know if in the Multiverse of Madness if we will get introduced to the big bad outside of maybe a post-credit or some kind of a tease or a hint that there is something much bigger lurking in the shadows or behind the Darkhold or something to that effect. Because obviously WandaVision, everything we saw in WandaVision was set up for the Multiverse of Madness, right? So, and that specifically includes where Wanda is in terms of what's happening with her, and the fact that she has the Darkhold. They also introduced us to Agatha Harkness and compartmentalized her. They basically created her, brought her into the universe, told us who she was, told us the kind of power that she has, and then put her in a drawer and said, okay, she's over here. We know she's there. She's going to come in useful at some point. So we know she's going to play a role at some point, kind of like Mordo they did something similar with Mordo in the first Doctor Strange movie, where they introduced him, told us how powerful he was. At the very end, we see him, you know, basically no more sorcerers, and they put him in a drawer. Okay, we know he's out there. We know he's going to come into play. Now we know he's going to come into play in the second Doctor Strange movie, right? So he's out sorcerer hunting, and they're going to need time to unravel all of this and introduce the bigger overarching story of what is happening in the Marvel Universe for Phase 4. That's not going to happen in one movie. So the chances of them being able to introduce a villain as massive as Chthon in one movie, like there's zero chance in my... Okay, let me not say zero chance.
Not going to happen.
Yeah, not going to happen. I think that there is a very small chance
unlikely
that they introduce and kill off or dismiss Chthon in one movie. That would be so dumb. Again, that is on par with introducing Galactus, and he's a one and done villain. That would be so dumb. He's the god of chaos in the Marvel universe. It's dumb. He's one of the elder gods. So, and again, I get that they kind of did that in the first Doctor Strange movie with Dormammu. I was just gonna say that. I'm like, but they kind of already took Dormammu. But he didn't die.
No,
and
he didn't.
And Doctor Strange, just like in the comics, made a bargain with him that he would not bother their dimension.
Tim, did
again.
he say, Dormammu, I've come to bargain? Did he say that?
I think he said it a couple times. So, but they did say, so he wasn't killed off. He wasn't destroyed. He's just like what happens, we've seen happen in the comics. Doctor Strange struck a bargain with him so that he would back off and leave the dimension alone in exchange for X, Y, and Z. So, but with this, they have made a very specific point to introduce the Darkhold, which is, again, a very specific artifact that is tied to a very specific villain in Marvel Comics who is insanely powered. He's basically a divine being, a evil divine being from from before the creation of the universe, right?
Dime a dozen in the Marvel universe, Tim. Dime a dozen.
In comics, yeah, right, exactly. But it just seems to me that would be, unless they go an extremely different direction, which is absolutely possible, he will be like the big overarching villain, and we will get a big, broad, overarching story arc with all of these characters that are being introduced on both the Disney Plus series as well as in the films. We know we're getting Blade, we're getting Fantastic Four.
God, I can't wait for
we're
Blade.
Getting all right. We're getting Moon Knight. We're getting all of these new characters, She-Hulk, and so on and so on and so on. Miss Marvel, or Ms. Marvel, excuse me. But so we're going to get all these really powerful characters introduced and all this kind of thing in phase 4. We're going to get a big, broad overarching story where we might, and it seems likely that we're going to have Wanda as at least a serious threat during at least a portion of that. And then once this story arc ends up, maybe we see like the Fantastic Four introduced toward the end. They help them defeat whatever the big, universal threat is. And then maybe at the end of that, it ends with Silver Surfer showing up, as the Herald of the Galactus, and that leads us into phase 5.
Yeah, I don't know. For some reason, I don't know why I'm like, I don't know what it is. Even though, like, obviously, it's just fact that Chthon is tied to the Darkhold and stuff like that. For some reason, I just don't see them, like, I don't know, being like the big, big bad for the next several movies. You know what I mean? Like, I see him.
Yeah, no, you may be right. He may not. They may decide to go in a completely different direction. But it would just be a very different.
I will say the one thing I thought was interesting is Harkness tells Wanda in the show, before Wanda even goes full Scarlet Witch and getting her new costume and everything, when Agatha's on top of the building, she tells her, she's like, your power exceeds that of the Sorcerer Supreme. And I was like, right. Oh, which, goes to the theory that she's going to be the villain if she's going to use this chaos magic for her own purposes and stuff like that. But I was also like, that means Doctor Strange is showing up. And he didn't show up.
He did not show up.
But I thought it was very interesting that they clearly let us know that
they specifically stated
the Sorcerer Supreme, they're tied together. We already know straight out, Kevin Feige said Wanda is going to be in the Multiverse of Madness. So maybe going back to that, she's just the main villain and Chthon is just like in there pulling her strings and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah, and the other thing that I wonder, I don't know if you were wondering the same thing, is like with them introducing, this story arc with Wanda where she's going off the rails, man. Like she's legit. She's like torturing people. She's warping reality. She's going off the rails a little bit. And it's not that she's bad, but she's got some issues and it's wreaking havoc. And she's allowing herself to do harm to others as a result. And one of the things that I'm wondering is, are they going to at some point, because there are beings throughout the Marvel universe that, basically are meant to keep things in check when powers like Wanda's gets a little bit out of hand, or people start to threaten kind of the fabric of reality and so forth like that. There are beings that they have in the Marvel universe that are meant to keep all of that in check. And I'm wondering if they're going to introduce any of them. Something like the TVA obviously is one of them, which we know for a fact they're introducing in Loki, right? But there's other beings, that hold that position in the Marvel universe. So I'm wondering, is it just going to be the TVA that somehow comes into play when it comes to Wanda? How is all of that going to work? I mean, they're obviously introducing it for a reason, I would think. Or, maybe it's just for the Loki series. I don't know. There's so many possibilities. Because, as we always say, it's because comics. So there's like 1,000 different angles and routes and perspectives they could take. But it really remains, a lot of the doors they kicked open with this series really remain super fascinating to think about and speculate on. But in the end, they've definitely proven that who knows which direction they're going to go.
For sure. In the end, I think like, I liked the finale. I will say it was a little underwhelming, but I loved seeing the fight between obviously the two visions. That was probably I don't want to know if that's my favorite. That was one of my favorite parts of the episode. Seeing the whole visions fight each other and the construct vision tell the sword vision, "Hey man, look into your heart, so to speak. Hear your thoughts and memories. You're just like me." So, and then he comes to the realization of, hey, yeah, these are my memories, flies off. And obviously he's ultimately going to become the real Vision again, or Vision, the normal Vision again, and meet Wanda. And maybe he's going to be the one to bring Wanda back when she goes AWOL. You know what I mean? What if she's the Black Widow to Scarlet Witch's Hulk, where he's like, "Calm down, easy boy." You know what I mean?
The sun's getting really low.
Yeah. And she's like, "Oh."
That whole scene was very cool, though, where the two visions were interacting. They were fighting at first, and then they end up in that building.
Yeah.
Kind of just hovering together.
Very, very cool.
And basically having almost like a little conference.
No, that's exactly what it was.
Even the dialogue of that scene, I thought was really, really well written, and it was interesting to watch and to see. And then when the Vision construct imparts to the Vision, what would we call him? The empty shell Vision
White Vision.
synthezoid. Yeah, he imparts to him and returns his memory, restores his memories, and he says, "I am the Vision," and he just takes off.
Which again,
like deuces.
I think he's gonna be the one to calm Wanda down, and she's gonna be like, "Ooh, you in that new sexy white suit? Oh yeah," you know what I mean?
It could happen.
But I even like if I'm sure you noticed, but the White Vision, his face was different in the sense like the patterns and the sculpting in it, like it was a little different.
Yeah.
I thought it looked really, really cool.
It did. It looked very cool.
But we hinted on it, or not hinted on it. We talked about it really briefly, but then we got distracted and went to something else. Wanda's costume, or Scarlet Witch costume, freaking dope.
Awesome.
Really, really cool. I love the little headpiece, that iconic headpiece she has, how it's really textured. It's got this design in it. She's got like that red cloak now with the hood and stuff, which I think is really cool. And obviously throwing back to the comic books and stuff like that. I dug it a lot. I was fine with the costume she's had, in Endgame and Civil War and stuff like that. But this is like, no, this is Scarlet Witch proper. So they finally did it.
Yeah, without any doubt. That was one of the cooler aspects of the entire.
Oh, that's another thing. I feel like one of the last big things we have to talk about. Freaking Monica Rambeau, Photon, the scroll.
Oh yeah,
the scroll comes to her.
I was actually going to bring that up right after I answered that part.
The scroll comes up to her in the end, and she's like, "Hey."
Yep.
They need you up there, which we're assuming is freaking Sword and Nick Fury is what I
think that's our lead into the Secret Invasion series that got announced.
Yeah.
So because we've got Ms. Marvel coming and we've got Secret Invasion coming, and then obviously Monica Rambeau, especially with the scroll appearing to her there in the mid-credit scene. That's obviously directly tying to what we saw at the end of Spider-Man Far From Home, which is going to lead us into the Secret Invasion series, which is also featuring Sam Jackson returning for the 87th time,
and probably Monica Rambeau, which she's probably gonna go full Photon, which she kind of did. Well, she didn't go full Photon, but we saw her use her powers a lot in this last episode. She used them a little bit in episode 8 against Wanda, used them a lot more in this one, and which I think is really, really cool. So we're definitely gonna get her, which I imagine Monica Rambeau has been several different characters. She's gone by a few aliases in Marvel over the years. Obviously, she was the second Captain Marvel, but I think they're going Photon with her because literally in like the second or third episode of the series, when she's taken to Sword for the first time after the whole blip, that episode, you see a picture of her mom and her middle name is Photon. That's like her nickname. So it's like, oh, you don't show us that and then not name Monica Photon, one of her aliases from the comics, whenever you decide to do that, which we would assume is the Secret Invasion miniseries. There's just so many freaking dang things with the MCU. It is nuts. So many shows coming. It's crazy.
That scene where we got our first look at her power set was pretty cool too in episode 9 there. So I'm that could be a really, really fun series. I mean, I was kind of excited about it when they announced it, because once we saw the end credit scene of Far From Home, everybody was immediately speculating Secret Wars was going to be the actual premise of Phase 4, right? That we thought that was, or Secret Invasion. I just said, what did I say? Secret Wars? Secret Invasion, I mean. is going to be the premise of phase 4. And now that doesn't look like it's probably going to be the case. It looks like it's going to be kind of a side story that's happening simultaneously.
Yeah.
But, you know,
they're taking these big story arcs and making them series like obviously Secret Invasion and then even Armor Wars with freaking Don Cheadle War Machine.
Right.
Like,
yes,
those could easily have been like 3 movies. But I guess, again, that's kind of what the series are, right? Like, if you make each episode 40 minutes and you have like 6 or 8 of them, you're essentially making 2 or 3 movies. So I guess it makes sense that you could now cover more content with long format storytelling, which would be TV, obviously, because it's several episodes.
Without a doubt. And they're clearly setting up to have multiple storylines, like smaller story arcs happening simultaneously with the bigger overarching story.
Yes.
Because as you just alluded to, they've got so many characters now that exist. They've got so many characters in the mix, so many different things. They're blowing the doors open, not just on the multiverse. They had already opened the door to the different realms and all of that kind of stuff. So they've got a lot to work with.
I just want to, on a completely side note, remember how I said eating those muffins was going to make me crash earlier when we started the podcast?
Are we there?
I literally just got like I'm getting sleepy.
like someone's slowly shutting the engines down.
Every time like you're talking and I'm just sitting here listening, I'm just like, no, that's not boring. I'm just a sugar crash.
He's like an old man at happy hour or the early bird.
No joke. Sheesh, maybe scarfing all those muffins was not the best idea. Also, can we take a moment and just talk about the word scarfing? How funny it was. Like, what? Scarfing. Like, people are really going to...
I guess it is an odd word, isn't it?
People are really going to think that it's like, oh, those were those kind of muffins earlier. Like, Arris is dissecting the word scarfing.
It's like, dude, what would you do right now if a snake flew by?
What is a Scarlet Witch? Like, does that literally just mean red witch, or is it more?
So if I tried really hard, do you think I could like astral project?
Wait, Keanu Reeves, you're on the podcast?
There is no spoon.
Oh man, that's good stuff. I'm just curious to see where not Loki. Well, yes, Loki, but before that, obviously, Falcon Winter Soldier, because there's going to be some, I would imagine not a lot, but there's got to be a little bit of crossover because it's the MCU. So I'm wondering what ramifications WandaVision will have on that show. You know what I mean? And like, are they even based in the same exact time frame? Like, you know what I mean? Is this one a little farther? Is it a little behind? We don't even know yet. So I'm very curious to see that first episode, just to get like this is where we're going. You know what I mean?
Without a doubt, yeah. I don't know. I am really excited about the Loki series. I think that one looks like a ton of fun. Having said that, I think that the Loki series is going to be like WandaVision in the sense that it's going to be a lot of setup.
Oh, well,
it's going to be pretty self-contained.
Yes.
They're going to introduce us to the TVA, what they are, who they are, what they do, and they're going to set up things for the remainder. Because Loki, I guess we don't know this for 100% certain. You can never say 100% within the MCU and comics in general, but we know that on a broad scale, he has, his story arc has completed, with his death in Infinity War. And he's a god, but he died. He definitively died. So we're getting, the side stories of what happened, and they're filling in gaps, but the series as a whole is going to be used to introduce new characters, again, the TVA, and new storyline or plot catalysts. That will move us into other aspects of where the MCU is going. Kind of like, again, going back to the end of, the end credit scene of Wanda, that we had that mid-credit scene with the Skrull and with Monica Rambeau, and then the end credit scene that we already talked about where she's, astral projecting and the whole thing with her kids. But, the other aspect of that is where she is. And there's a lot of speculation that might be, Wundagore Mountain, which in comics has numerous ramifications, also tied to Chthon,
You in the Chthon.
I'm telling you, in the comics, if that is Wundagore Mountain, in the comics, Chthon is basically imprisoned within Wundagore Mountain. It's also shown as one of the places during one story arc or one of their backstories where, Wanda and Pietro were raised and grew up and that sort of a thing. So there's a lot of tiebacks, and it's just like, but they didn't say that that's where it was.
No. Yeah.
It's just, it could be. It's like where, that's a really remote place, and they could do that. It might not be. But the fact she has the Darkhold and then she ends up in this, huge mountainous cabin.
After you just defeated,
it definitely makes the wheels
after
turn.
you just defeated an ancient witch, wouldn't you want a vacation in the mountains?
I want a vacation in the mountains right now. So the answer, I guess, is yes.
I also think Agatha's going to come back into play just because she didn't kill her.
Of course.
But it's like weird. Was it kind of ambiguous to you? Because she put her back in her Agnes form, but then right after she did that, she took the hex away and everyone went back to normal. So I'm like, does that mean she also went back to normal? Because you were still in there with everyone else and you just took it away. So, or you just have Agnes in the real world now being like, hunky dory, guys, as she's going into like a bar.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like,
is she okie dokie artichoke?
Like, isn't that just swell? So I don't know. I wonder where she's at. Is she still in that form, just like going through normal present day life, Brady Bunch style? Like, I don't know.
No idea,
Right?
man. Zero. I asked the same question I was like, okay, so is she supposed to be in another dimension?
Yeah, like what happened?
Is she trapped inside of a construct? Is she wandering around the real world thinking, in a trance, basically thinking that she's this okie dokie artichoke character?
I want that one. And then I'd want to watch a show just on that because that'd be hilarious.
Honestly, I have no idea what they're going to do with that. But obviously, they 100% put her in a drawer and said, okay, she's going to come into play later on. I honestly think that there's a very good chance that she might wind up being still someone who helps Wanda.
Possible. I mean, it's possible.
Yeah, I mean, they kind of alluded to it slightly at different points of their interaction. Who knows? Who knows? There's so much they could do. But we've got, just in the next couple of months, we've got 2 more series that might fill some of these holes and start giving us a better idea.
For sure. But now that we talked an hour about this finale, I feel like we've almost talked more about these last 2 episodes of WandaVision than we have with The Mandalorian, and we love The Mandalorian.
That's possible. You know what? I think it's because this show, again, some of it being clickbait, but it introduced so many possibilities as to where
most
they
of
could
which
go with
did
the
not
series.
happen.
Most of which did not happen. But, there was so many possibilities. There was so much to speculate because it's going to branch out into such a broad, such a broad way across the Marvel Cinematic Universe. That it's just, there's just so much more to talk about. With Mandalorian, we know we're getting more shows and stuff like that, but for at least now, it's relatively self-contained.
I was just waiting for that Sebastian Stan announcement where he's officially cast as young Luke Skywalker.
Dang right.
Dude.
Yeah, dang
That's what
right,
I want.
man.
It's like, don't get me wrong, you are an awesome Winter Soldier, but I would much rather see you as a young Luke Skywalker.
Oh,
like, I love me some
I'm
Winter
still-
Soldier, but come on, he would be perfect for freaking young Luke.
heck yeah, man. I am waiting with bated breath.
He said he'd do it.
Don't do me wrong, Lucas.
He said he'd do
Don't
it.
do me wrong, Lucasfilm.
He said he would do it. Your move, mouse.
That's right.
But we have another new series that just kind of came out a little while ago, and that would be Superman and Lois, the newest superhero DC show to hit the CW. And I've only watched the first episode. You watched the first 2 episodes, so I don't want any spoilers with the second episode. But I know
And this is, as we have discussed, this is the first CW series that I have watched from the beginning.
which is crazy, considering how long and how many there have been since like 2011, 2012. Because I believe that's when Arrow.
I will, although I did start watching The Flash with my sons.
Okay. Because
but that's recent. That's really recent, and that's because they really wanted to watch it. So I was like, okay, I'll start watching it with you, and we started watching The Flash. We're in the 2nd season now.
Oh yeah, I still enjoyed the first few seasons. I think it was the first 3 or 4 seasons, and that it's the season. What season did I fall off on? I don't. The Thinker. I think it's the season. Yes, the Thinker season where he was the big bad. That's when I fell off. I think that's up season 4 or 5, but after that I'm like, all right. Like, because I remember people were complaining for a while that every season a speedster is the villain, but then once they made a speedster not the main villain of that season, it's like the show wasn't as good in my opinion. that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, but I mean, so far that my sons especially are loving it. Like the first season and a half that we've watched, the first, it's for me, it's good. But it's, for me, TV, I'm just not a big TV network, TV show person. It's just not my cup of tea.
Except for Superman and Lois.
So again, I'm kind of a sucker. I said this to you earlier. I'm kind of a sucker for Superman. So I've always been a fan of Superman. I love the character, and I love what he represents just as a, I guess as like an embodiment of hope. So I'm kind of a sucker for Superman, and when I saw this come on, I was like, I'm probably not going to watch it. But then I don't know. I DVR'd it, and now I'm watching it. And I've got the 3rd episode waiting for me right now on my DVR, so I'll probably watch that tonight.
That's so funny. This is my first rodeo with CW shows, obviously. I've for a while, I was watching freaking all of them. Obviously, Arrow, Flash, Supergirl, Black Lightning,
right.
all that stuff. And then I've systematically kind of fell off one by one. But obviously, with it's Superman, which this isn't like they're just introducing Superman to the CW universe or, this universe of the DC, this section, I should say, of the DC universe. Because he premiered in the Supergirl series. That's where they introduced him, and then he was originally supposed to be like 1 or 2 episodes, and they kept bringing him back every so often. Then he was in some of the crossovers, and now eventually they're like, yeah, let's just make a show. You know what I mean? But it's cool in the sense that this show, I think it's one of the reasons why you're watching it, is the budget is clearly a lot more than any other CW DC show. Where, don't get me wrong, this is still not like Disney Plus or HBO Max like budget here, you know what I mean? This is
or even DCEU budget,
right? Or DCEU budget, or anything like any shows like Game of Thrones or stuff like that. It's still it's like in the middle, right? Where it's not good as Disney Plus, but it's definitely not freaking like Supergirl. You know what I mean? Right. It's in this weird limbo.
Yeah. Batwoman. Or whatever.
Yeah. So because of that, it plays a lot better. Where it's more like, oh yeah, this looks cool. I think this costume looks really cool. Minus my only gripe with it though is I feel like his collar is too high, like it chokes his neck too tight, where I feel like it needs to be a little more you need to see a little bit of chest to Superman, to just, I don't know, it makes his shoulders look like overly broad for some reason, because clearly there's a little muscle suit under there, and that's my only gripe with it. Besides that, I dig it. I don't think you're ever really gonna top the Henry Cavill suit from BVS or Man of Steel. That's kind of perfect. Henry Cavill as Superman is just kind of perfection. I feel like it's kind of unfair, and we already know this is a multiverse, as we saw
exactly
when Ezra Miller Flash crossed over into the Flash episode, or the Infinite Crisis episode, if you will. So I mean, I enjoyed it. It's good. It's weird for me to say, but I'm like, I'm not tired, but I'm just a little like, because there's so many shows out there with so many streaming services coming out. There's so many good shows out there, but that are just not comic book related, that it's like I have to pick and choose because I don't have enough time to watch everything. So it's not like that I don't want to watch this or that superhero show. It's just like I have to pick now. You know what I mean? So like, obviously I'm going to watch all the Disney Plus stuff because that's like the stuff I love and amazing, and it's literally mini movies. Right. But it's like with the CW shows and stuff more along that line, I'm a lot more picky. Like, I'm not just going to watch, they're doing, Blue Beetle on CW. That doesn't automatically mean I'm going to watch it. I mean, clearly I'll watch like the pilot and stuff, but that doesn't mean if it's not up to a certain standard, I'm going to just keep watching it because it's what I'm saying is, like, I used to be the guy where I would just watch it because it was a thing I like. It's like, that's Superman. I'll watch anything that's Superman. Oh, that's the Flash. I'll watch anything that's Flash. But like, I don't know if it's the older I get or just the more options there is out there. I'm like, no, just because it's Superman doesn't mean I'm going to watch it. I have to be a little more picky now. You know what I mean? It has to be a good Superman show. You know what I mean?
I think I would say it's almost definitely the latter. It's because there's so many more options now. You can afford to be choosy. Yeah. Whereas before, fans, we just took what we could get.
For sure. That's probably what it is. But it's because it's like it's a thing where when you don't have any options, there's only one grocery store in town. You have to go to that freaking grocery store. You got 5 grocery stores in town. You don't have to go to that one anymore. You know what I mean? So it's definitely, but it's cool though. I like that. I like that we have all these options because for the people who don't like Henry Cavill Superman, now you got this Superman. You know what I mean? So I think it gives everyone has something. You know what I mean? So if you want this tone, awesome. You don't want that, get this. So that's what I like about this multiverse the DC's introducing. But with that said, I am enjoying this series. I think it's off to a good start. There's a cool twist at the end of episode 1 that I don't know if we want to spoil here, but there's a cool little twist. And I don't know how that leads into episode 2 and what we learn from that. But people who watched it knows literally like the last scene is a big like, say what? You know what I mean? Who be that? But I enjoyed it. I am a little with Superman having the kids like that, the twins, if you will. I'm used to him having just Jonathan Kent. So the fact that they went with twins and then kind of what they're doing with that, where one of them is going to go bad potentially, but you don't really know which one. They're alluding to this one, but maybe not. I don't know, but it is fun, and the action scenes are pretty cool to watch.
I agree. Yeah, I think everything that you just said, I agree with. That's kind of where I'm at. It's it's a little bit 50-50 for me. It's got the production quality is absolutely a step up. They've stepped that up quite a bit, I think, for this series. The story has me interested without any doubt. And I won't get into because you've only seen one episode and. I don't know, for all of you in the audience that are up to date, I haven't seen episode 3 yet. I'll be watching that tonight, but they've definitely caught my attention. They've got my interest, and I'm going to continue to watch it. The one big thing in it, it's basically right in line with what you are saying now, is my one big thing that drives me nuts. And this is kind of a pet peeve for me in just modern storytelling in general, is the teenage angst. Where, kids can be jerks, especially teenagers. I was a jerk. We were all jerks at teenagers at some point or another. Our brains are broken at that time. But in modern movies and TV, they put that crap at like level 1000. They turn it on blast. And there are just times, especially on network television shows, I should say, especially on networks like the CW or Freeform or whatever, some of these network shows where they do kind of like that, the teenage dramedy, the dramas and stuff like that, where the characters are so whiny and so entitled that they're borderline unbearable to watch for me. And in this show, that's kind of where it's at times. This is the other thing. And they do the same thing in movies. I don't want to make it sound like it's only on TV. They do it in movies a lot too. It's that whole like, I hate you, Dad. Why'd you ruin my life? And it's over like he accidentally asked him if he wanted toast instead of waffles for breakfast. And it just these, you know what I'm saying? It's like over the smallest thing. They're like, oh, I guess you don't love me anymore, and they stomp off and slam a door. And it's like, man,
you just got to realize emo's not dead.
Yeah, the emo thing, man. I cannot do it. And it makes me go like, man, what's going on with like the kids? What sample are they getting of teenagers that they're writing these kids this way? Like, is this what teenagers are like in LA and Hollywood? Like that this is the sample size they have, that they just think this is the way all kids act? Because I've got teenagers and they have their moments, but I've been around teenagers, I have multiple teenagers, nieces, nephews, friends of my kids. And none of them are that over the top. It's like, it's so exaggerated to the point to where it just every time when it starts, it's just like, please make it stop. Someone please make it stop. So in this show, one of the sons is, he's got some issues and things like that. And they kind of allude at a couple of issues, but he's got social anxiety and some other things, which, those are very real issues. But he falls into that camp where the teenage angst is on like full tilt. Mm-hmm. And there's moments where it just makes me go, oh, can we just move on to another scene? This is getting a little cringy. So that is probably my biggest issue with the show thus far. but I'm able to look past it and keep going, with it and everything like that. But I do hope that ramps down a touch
for sure. And it's like,
because it's obviously part of the storyline. They've got to have that element there because they're introducing this new son of Superman, and this contrast between the two boys that are supposed to be twins, though not identical. So it's going to be an element of it where the kid, he suffers from different anxiety issues and so forth. But I just would. You could dial down the teenage angst just a touch, the whininess, dial down the whiny.
I'm curious to see where I land, like, because I've only watched the first episode, so it's one of those things where I can't even fully judge it. Although, again, I liked the first episode. I did enjoy it. I love me some Superman too. He's obviously one of my favorite superheroes. I've said it many times before. He's the freaking backbone and heart of DC Comics and the DC universe. So anytime he does have a series, I'm going to give it a try. But I hope I like it enough going forward as I watch episode 2, 3. I'll give it the 3 episodes actually. So the episodes that are out as of now, I'll watch the 3 because if I'm not hooked by 3 hours of content at that point, I don't know if I will be hooked. You know what I mean? But so far, if they stay like the first episode, which was a longer episode, the premiere episode, the pilot was longer. I think I'm gonna have a nice little series to watch here because I like Superman. I like where they're going, and if the villain tease is any indication, I'm curious about that. Again, I haven't seen episode 2, so I don't know how that gets fleshed out or if it does, but I'm very curious.
Yeah, I am too. I'm curious to see where they take it, especially with the introduction of Jordan, which is the other son. You have John and Jordan. So with the introduction of Jordan and kind of seeing the differences between the two boys and them hinting at, will they have powers like their father or will they not? And who is this villain that's being, that was introduced in the first episode that I won't get into where it goes in the second or the third. Well, I don't know about the third yet, but it's definitely interesting enough to keep watching. And, I hope it just keeps getting better because so far it's been, overall, it's been fun.
Yeah. And the action, you could definitely see they don't have the budget to do it, but I don't want to say mimic, but they're definitely trying to go in that path of like the Snyder cut fight scenes where it's like the slow-mo and then it like speeds up, from the DCEU, like kind of things. It was kind of reminded me, not even so much Snyder, I guess the Snyder verse because Wonder Woman's within it, but it kind of reminded me of the Wonder Woman fight scene in the first movie where like it would slow down and then speed back up and slow down. That's what certain elements and fight scenes from the pilot episode of Superman and Lois reminded me of, which I'm like, yeah, no, that's pretty cool. Because I think there's one, they even released a clip on YouTube, is the fight scene I'm talking about where Superman like flies through a wall to like get at the villain. I'm like, that's pretty cool. You know what I mean? I mean, Superman. Who doesn't like Superman?
Yeah. And I really hope that they really ramp that stuff up. Because I miss the Superman content. They've been neglecting the Superman opportunities and they've had, our boy Cavill sidelined for quite a while. So this has been like a little bit of a nice catch up with some Superman content, for some DC.
Get some Lois and Clark action on DVD. I know the DC Universe app used to have it on there. I don't know if it's on there anymore, but it's probably on HBO Max. And get some Dean K. Superman in your life. I used to love that series growing up. I watched it every week with my mom.
Yeah, remember that line that I told you about?
Hey man, that's nostalgia.
You know who used to love that show? My older sister, when we were growing up, was obsessed with that show and was in love with Dean Cain.
Dude, that show was great. I don't even care.
It was absolutely in love with Dean Cain, obsessed with him.
Yeah.
Because of that, it just drove me crazy. It was just like, because it was, it was a lot like, the first Superman movie with Christopher Reeves. It was, they had that kind of, it was very much a romance
yes,
as well
100%.
as, a Superman show. And when they did the Superman, what is it, Lois and Clark?
Lois and Clark, yep.
When they did that show, it was very much focused. It wasn't really about Superman. It was about Lois and Clark. It was,
Notice what I said earlier. I watched it with my mom.
Yes. Okay. Yeah.
But as a kid,
but this show, Superman and Lois, isn't the same.
No. But as a kid, it was Superman, and I'm like, this is dope. So I'm just saying, if you want more Superman, you don't only have to watch Superman and Lois. You can watch Lois and Clark.
I'll go back and I'll watch the Christopher Reeves movie.
But you did say your sister drove you crazy, and you said crazy, and I was like, oh, it's that time of the episode, Tim. It's that time.
You are you are the destroyer of worlds.
Hey, I've been waiting. What have we been talking here for? Like,
you ruin all things good.
We've been talking for almost an hour and a half here. I've been waiting to be like, I got some more Snyder Cut news for you, Tim. I got some more Snyder Cut news.
Let me. But this week is different because you have been torturing me all week long. You didn't wait a week for the podcast. No. This week you ramped it up. And you have been tormenting me with texts.
It was like 3
messages.
It was like 3
every time. Oh,
I just sent you a new a behind the scenes picture of Jared Leto Joker from that end clip in the new Snyder Cut trailer.
You sent me the teaser trailer.
I sent you the teaser trailer. Oh, I did send you. Oh, and
multiple
and the
pictures.
new poster. There's a new poster they just released.
The posters.
Right.
Oh my god,
dude! There's so much happening. But the biggest one, like you said, we could talk about the behind the scenes picture of Jared Leto Joker. We could talk about the new poster they released with all the Justice League. We could even talk about the several trailers that they released. Because since last week, every day Snyder would release a 40-second trailer for the individual characters, and that's kind of what we're going to talk about, but not all of them. We're just know they did one for Superman, Batman, which we heard the voice of Martian Manhunter, which is kind of cool. But again, I wish we would have just waited for the freaking movie.
Yeah, wouldn't that have been a novel idea?
Cyborg, Flash, which again they showed him in his nightmare costume, and again, even though we've had pictures of that, I would have liked to see that clip in the movie. But the biggest one that I text you, and you're freaking, I text you back. I'm like, the freaking sarcasm was so thick through text. I was laughing so hard because they released a Darkseid character trailer where we hear his voice pretty well. Like he's talking the whole trailer. Like we heard sentences before.
He speaks throughout
the whole thing.
Freaking
the whole
teaser.
teaser is just us. Like you kind of heard Darkseid talk like a word or two, but like no, he full on says a paragraph, and we see new clips of him too, which is kind of like awesome. He sounds freaking fantastic. He looks awesome.
Mm-hmm.
But were you happy with this, Tim? Were you happy with us getting new footage and hearing his voice in full?
Well, yeah, I was super thrilled, I was so excited after waiting 4+ years to get what is likely going to be small amount of actual Darkseid dialogue in the film. I was so excited to get that in a trailer on YouTube and Instagram and Vero. I was so excited about that because who wants to wait and see it in the context of the film, on a bigger screen? Who wants to do that? That's stupid. Zack Snyder's got the right idea. Let's just put it out on social media and spoil the crap out of it after people waited for 4 years for it. Let's just do it that way because who wants to wait for the full context and see inside the movie? That's dumb. So this was perfect. I was so glad that he released that. It was really good. It was really good. Thank you, Zach. Thank you.
So the clip was posted all over social media, right? So I copied the link from Instagram and sent it to you. And your reply was almost verbatim what you just told me, but I got to read it. Because it's literally, it's something you go, it does look pretty cool. I can't, hold on. Because your sarcasm. Hold on. So you go. It does look pretty cool. I'm so glad he released most of what will probably be a small amount of Darkseid dialogue 1 week before the movie released. After 4 years of waiting to see it, we will see it on Vero and Instagram. Thanks, Zack Snyder.
Yeah. Thanks, buddy.
Oh my.
After 4 years of waiting.
God.
1 week before the movie finally releases.
That's so funny.
Thank you so much for letting us see Darkseid's dialogue and scenes beforehand on social media on a handheld screen.
You know what killed me? It was that last bit. It was the after 4 years of waiting to see it, we will see it on Vero and Instagram before seeing it on a big TV or the theater.
Bad. Freaking unreal.
It's it's he's such a we end this like we've been ending every podcast like this for the last few weeks here. But Zack Snyder is such like a catch-22. Like the amount of fan service and stuff he does and teases is great. But like at the same time, it's like, dude, your movie's literally coming out in less than a week now. Like legitimately 6 days, dude. Like what? Like just
yeah.
I mean, like because you have the people on the other side who are being like, well, maybe there's just so many surprises because since it's 4 hours that this is not giving away a lot at all. But I'm like, okay, fine, but just imagine how many. That just means if I didn't know any of this, that every 10 minutes I'd be going, oh my God. And who doesn't want to do that? You know what I mean? So it's like,
yeah, that's kind of the point. And it's not like it's been this constant drip. And it's like, dude, I don't care if the movie's 4 hours long. It's about context. It's about reveals. He has spoiled so much of this movie just in the last month and a half alone. So much of this movie that could have been awesome reveals, really cool payoffs for all the fans who have been lobbying for this to get released. And
I think that's his mindset, right? Like he knows this only happened because of the fans. So he's like he's like, since this is only for you, I'll give you all these little bits early. You know what I mean?
Dude, that's fine, but do it in small, very small doses just to keep people excited about it and keep me like, hey, all your work is about to pay off. All of your efforts are about to pay off. Everything you've been waiting for, this is all because of you. I can't wait for you to see it, and release the poster, a couple of posters, release a trailer and maybe one more teaser that's really super vague and doesn't show a lot of stuff. But that's not what's been happening. It's been this endless spoiler after spoiler after spoiler after spoiler of big ticket stuff. And it's like, no, man, that is dumb. That is jacked up. Why would you do that? And you know why? I figured it out. After this last round of this past week, I figured it out, Arris. It's because Zack Snyder, he thinks he is Darkseid. He's the destroyer of worlds. Wait,
so he rules Apocalypse?
Yeah.
He's such a catch-22 for me because
he is Darkseid embodiment.
It's such a catch-22 because like I completely agree with you on the part like, yeah, like this we should not be getting any 6 days, dude. Like we should not be getting any more teasers at all. Literally less than a week away from seeing it in its entirety. We do not need anything. We do not need it. We needed nothing.
Especially not full scenes with Darkseid, who we know isn't even the major bad, the biggest villain, I should say, in this film. Like he only gets a certain amount out of Zack Snyder's mouth himself. He said this over the past couple of years that Darkseid, he has small role, he makes an appearance, he gets teased, and then his biggest role was supposed to be in the sequel. Was supposed to be in Justice League 2. So we're only going to get a certain amount of Darkseid.
Yeah.
Why would you, 1 week before the movie finally hits, would you show us all that Darkseid stuff?
I don't know, man. I don't know. Again, I agree with you in the sense that I didn't want any more teases as of a few months ago. You're like I'm fine with the Snyder Cut trailer they released a few weeks ago here which showed us the Nightmare Joker. But like only that, right? Because he even spoiled his own teaser. Because before that teaser, he showed us images of the freaking War Machine bat tank from The Dark Knight Returns. He showed us what the Joker looks like in the Nightmare universe. So even when I saw that, when we talked about that teaser on the podcast, that was one of my complaints, or that trailer rather, the Snyder Cut trailer. I'm like, yeah, but like he already spoiled that before he even gave us the trailer. So by the time I saw the trailer, I was like, yeah, I saw this just yesterday. When I would have been like, oh my God, Joker, oh my God, he's putting the Dark Knight Returns bat tank in there. But like I saw it the day before.
He even did that backwards, where he didn't even let us enjoy the reveals in a freaking trailer.
Again, conflicted. Like I understand, I guess, kind of where like I get his intentions are good is what I'm trying to say. Now, do I necessarily agree with them as I don't want them to be spoiled? No.
I don't think he has intentions. I just think he can't help himself. I just think that, again, I said it before. He's like Trump on Twitter. He cannot stop himself at this point. He has an addiction and he cannot stop posting things, and he's not thinking about whether or not this is going to be a bummer for the fans or this is going to ruin possible reveals or these spoilers are going to be too much. He's just so excited and he just can't. He just wants to show everything.
Wrong.
So he's just doing
Wrong.
it. No, I'm sorry. I've got to post another video of Darkseid.
Oh man. Well, all I gotta say is I will have more teases because even once this is released next week, even if we record this podcast after it's released, guaranteed there will be more posting of something that didn't make it into the cut, and I will be bringing it up to you, Tim.
That'll be fine because I'll have seen the freaking movie. Good God Almighty. And apparently some people have already seen it. Didn't you say that?
Yes, it leaked. It leaked for an hour or two. So freaking HBO Max internally, some people are saying it's sabotage. I don't see why that would be sabotage.
Yeah, you know who it was? It was Zack Snyder.
People are saying
Zack Snyder got his hands on the levers at HBO Max. They let him into the room and he just flipped the switch because he can't help himself. It was him. It was Zack.
They accidentally put it under the Tom and Jerry thumbnail. So when people click Tom and Jerry, they started playing the Snyder cut. But again, people are saying that was sabotage. People did it on purpose. I don't see how that would work because WB would be losing money that way. I don't think you would want to do that, whether you agree with the Snyder cut or not. At this point, you've already invested millions of dollars, so why would you want to spoil it right before?
Yeah.
So yeah.
How long was it up?
It was up. Apparently, it was up long enough for people to see the first hour of it, but several people just fast forward to the end and now know how it ends, and there's big spoilers potentially out there.
Oh my God. Are you serious? Like, who does that?
Yeah.
Who, like, seriously, honestly, what do you think you're going to make a name for yourself?
Dude, all I know is
like, why would you do that after all this time?
I don't.
That's like buying a book and just reading the end.
I don't know, but that brings my torturing you for today's episode to an end, Tim.
No, because now the residuals are just going to stick with me. I'm agitated again.
I'm sure he'll release something tonight or tomorrow, and I'll text you. It'll be fine.
So terrible.
On that note, friends, we'll see you next time when we talk about all things comics.
You're the worst.